Hello, and welcome to part 7 of this Houdini tutorial. This is Lookdev materials. And so we're going to be adding some materials and textures to the soccer ball that we've worked on in the past 6 parts. Now this video is going to be a little long because, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. There's a lot of rendering going on in this video, so I'll try and skip over it for the sake of you viewers. With that out of the way, let's get into step 1. So here we have the ball. It's rendering right now. So before I did this, I actually created the ball in its entirety over here just to make sure everything was working. If there was any, things I need to get out of the way, and there were. I'm glad I did that. So this is just a copy of the same exact ball we've made up to this point. Because in Houdini you can do that. You can just copy trees by pressing the Alt key and dragging it over. And so I just dragged a box around the entirety of the tree, pressed Alt, and made a copy. So that's what we're going to be working with now. And so first things first, let's add a material library. So we're going to need to do step number 1, which is add a material library to the top of the tree. And we're just going to double click in that. Actually, before double clicking that, let's name it real quick. Let's name that backdrop. Alright, and that's going to be named backdrop 2 because of course there's the original ball back there that has the backdrop 1. So we're going to double click and head down there. And now we're going to do tab and principled shader. Enter. And we're just going to call this principled shader. You can rename it up here, you can name it down here. I prefer naming it down here by double clicking. We're going to call this soccer ball mat. Alright, and then by pressing Alt drag, Alt or Alt left click, we can drag a copy of that, and we're going to call this one backdrop mat. And so soccer ball is going to have a background set to 1, 1, and 1. And then the backdrop we just want as dark green as possible. So we're just going to go with this green up here. And I mean, we don't got to go super dark green. We'll just go regular green right there. Alright, so we've created those two. And so now we're going to go back up to the stage level by pressing U. So in the stage level, we're going to first do tab. Oh, and before we go there, let's just wire this into our backdrop. And so this is going to start rendering now, and we'll see a green mat and all that. But while that's going on, let's just work on the other nodes that we need to add, right? So for step 2, we're going to press tab and we're going to do assign material. We're going to add this node. We're going to add this node right in between the scene import and camera. So let's add it right here. It'll add itself to the tree. And then in the parameter pane, so right next to primitives up here, we're just going to change this to /soccer. And so we'll just say soccer geo. Press enter. And then we'll go over here to get a material path. We'll click on this, go over to our materials, expand, click on soccer ball mat, which we created in our backdrop, and press OK. And then we're going to add another background. Oh, sorry, that should be hold up. So we've obviously got a mistake. Soccer ball mat should not be green. So let's look at soccer ball mat. Soccer ball mat should be 1. So soccer ball mat should be pure white, and then the backdrop should be green. So we accidentally got those backwards. So let's just fix that real quick. Alrighty. And so now we're back in assign materials. So we have soccer ball, and we're just going to set it to soccer ball mat, and then we're going to add a backdrop. We're going to set this to /backdrop. And then we're going to choose our materials, go to materials, and choose backdrop.mat, apply, or OK. And so now you can see we have a backdrop all green and pretty. So now we're going to go to step 3, and we're going to double click on the material library mode to dive in. And now we're going to go to the textures tab, and let me zoom in here for you. So we're going to click on the soccer ball mat and go into the textures tab. So we'll go to textures up here, and we're going to say base color. We're going to want to use a texture for that. And then we're going to click on texture right here. Make sure again that you're always in the HIP directory so that all your file locations are relatively close to one another. That way if your file goes to a different machine or anything, it'll still render out just fine. It's not machine dependent. It's kind of like everything is just packaged together essentially. And so we're going to go over here. We're going to go into hip/text, and then we're going to pick on soccerball color.rat or .rat. And we're going to select that. And we're going to go on and do our next texture. And so we're going to go to roughness and reflectivity. So we have reflectivity right here. We're going to go to use texture again. Go back to our folder. We're going to choose soccerball reflect.rat, accept. And then for roughness, where's our roughness at? Roughness over here, we're going to use that texture. And we're going to go over here and we're going to do soccerball rough.rat. And we're going to accept. And now we'll just let all this render out for a little bit. I'll skip forward for you. Alright, so we're finished rendering there. So we're going to finish up step 4. Alright. So we're going to set the effect path of our soccer ball. We're going to set that to 0.5 like they ask. So we're going to go over to bumps and normals. We're going to enable effects. And we're going to set that scale to 0.5. 0.6, 0.5. And so it's going to render again. And so I'll skip over that for you. And then we'll move on to step 5. Alright, so now we're going to go back up a level by pressing U. We're going to press tab and start on step 5. So tab, type in edit. We're going to put an edit node right in between the scene import and materials nodes. So right here. And now we're going to want to rotate the ball. So you can click on the ball, press R. So click on edit, go to the bar, press ball, press R, or the rotate tool over here. And as you can see, nothing's really going on. That's because we don't have the geometry deselected. So we're just going to press Control, left click right here. And now you can see we have the rotation. And so now we're just going to rotate our ball. I want the signal, I want the sigil a little bit up in the left, kind of like they have it in the tutorial PDFs. So we're just going to rotate that right about there. That's a pretty good look. And then we're just going to do Control, click on this to deselect. And so now our ball is turned wherever we want it. And so we're just going to let that render and then move on to step 6. Alright, now that that is all rendered out, let's move on to step 6. So we're going to have to add some texture maps to our backdrop. So let's double click into our backdrop and pick the backdrop map. We're going to set our base color to 1, 1, and 1. Like the instructions are asking us to do so. So we're just going to follow the PDF there. 1, 1, and 1. Okay, and so that's because the color will be multiplied with the texture map. And now we're going to click on the Textures tab. Under Base Colors, we're going to click Use Texture, File Selector, and we're just going to do the same thing like we did with the soccer ball. So now we're just going to go to backdrop color.rat. So backdrop color.rat. We're going to press accept. And then we're also going to do reflectivity because we want this to look nice. So we're going to go over here, pick reflectivity, backdrop reflect.rat, and accept. And so the UV isn't set up properly. We don't have to wait for all of this to render. You can see already that the UVs, or that the textures aren't wrapped properly to our UV, so they look a little bit odd. So we're going to have to change that up. So there's no need to actually let this render out. We're just going to go back up a level, and we're going to double click on backdrop again. Or rather, sorry, not backdrop. We're going to go, this needs to be named, well, actually, hold up. Let's see what this needs to be named. This is just material library. This is not a backdrop. So material library 2. Okay, so we're just gonna hop into our backdrop. Actually, let's make that material library 1's the original one, so the material library 1. Okay, so we're gonna hop down into the backdrop. We're gonna tab and we're gonna do UV project. And we're just going to add that in between our grid and bend. So our UG project is now added. And on the UG project, we're going to go to our Initialize tab. And so let's see where that is. So that's Initialize right here. We're going to click the Initialize button. It's just going to put it to the best plane. If we go into XY plane, you'd see that it initialized on the XY plane. So it's just going to find the best plane to put our UV here. And then we're just going to go and set the transformation in. So we're going to go back to transformation and set our V range to 0 and -1. Okay, and so we're gonna make sure that our display is on the subdivide node. The PDF wanted us to be very specific about that. And so we're gonna go back up, and now we're moving on to step 8. And we're gonna add a null node to the bottom. So right where we have our light mixer, this is where we're gonna add another null node. Because as you end command change, you always wanna add a null node, yeah? So we're just gonna call this shot 1. Or shot 2, because the other shot's already named shot 1. So this is shot 2. And then we're going to add one more node, and this is going to be a karma node. And so we're just going to move down here, make that straight. Okay, and now we're going to go into our karma mode, and this has its own render settings. So we're going to go to the sampling section, which is already opened up, and set our convergence mode to path traced. Okay, now we're going to go to our image output, which is right here, and we're going to go to, let's see, image output, and we need the filters. So we're going to go to filters, and then denoise. We're going to turn on the NVIDIA Optics Denoise. So this is going to make sure that when it's rendering in Karma, that we're using our NVIDIA drivers, because I have an NVIDIA card. If you have an AMD card, that might not be an option for you. Alright, and now we're just going to press the render to Mplay, which is all the way at the top right here. So we're just going to click this button. And so you're going to see a little window open up down here. Your computer may ask you for permission to open up the Mplay window. Just click accept. And then you're going to see this window start rendering. You're going to see the time it's going to take. So it's only at 20%. This renders a tad faster than it does in Houdini, since it's the Karma renderer rather than the perspective. So we're just going to let that render out for a little bit. 75%, almost at 90, and we're done. Okay, and so that is part 7. You can see if we wanted to take a screenshot, we could do Windows Shift S and take a screenshot of that, but we're not going to need to. I already took a screenshot. And so that's the ball set up with our renders, our lights, our camera, and so this is a pretty good endpoint. I would say when it comes to this entire project, this is like, it's split into 2 parts. There's the ball itself, and then there's rigging, which is making the ball bounce, move, all sorts of crazy movements. So I would say, unless you're interested in learning how to rig the ball, you can pretty much stop here. Your ball's essentially done. But if you do want to learn how to rig it and move further from there, be my guest. I do plan on making videos on how to rig the ball, and you can follow along with me. But for now, that's all I've got to show you, and I'd like to thank you a lot for spending this time with me, and have a great day.